Is Klingon society built upon a lie? A shocking Star Trek theory suggests so. For decades, Star Trek fans have celebrated the Klingons as one of science fiction's richest, most meticulously developed warrior cultures. They've been depicted as brutal yet honorable, violent yet philosophical, a species who live and die by the blade and by an unshakable devotion to the concept of honor. But what if this defining trait, the ideological heart of the Klingon Empire, is based not on truth, but on a fabrication? What if Klingon society is built not upon a noble warrior's code, but upon a lie constructed generations ago and maintained at all costs? It's not merely a provocative question. Across Star Trek, there are clues, buried in different shows, scattered across political shifts, and embedded in retellings of Klingon history, that imply the entire. It's a narrative carefully crafted to control the population, unify the empire, and mask centuries of hypocrisy. A stunning fan theory argues that once you assemble the pieces, the truth becomes startling. Klingon society's proudest foundation might be nothing more than propaganda. The paradox at the heart of Klingon honor. From the original series to Strange New Worlds, Klingon characters speak of honor the way humans speak of freedom or survival. Honor dictates everything: how Klingons fight, marry, serve, and die. In theory, Klingon honor is pure, absolute, and incorruptible. But in practice, the Klingon Empire repeatedly demonstrates that honor is flexible, politically weaponized, and often completely ignored by the very people who claim to uphold it. Take the High Council, where assassination is a legitimate path to promotion, or the frequent episodes where warriors lie, cheat, or betray each other to preserve their own reputations. Even Worf, raised by humans and supposedly the most honor-driven Klingon in the franchise, spends his entire career discovering that the Empire's institutions fall short of the ideals they preach. This central contradiction raises an alarming possibility. What if Klingon honor was never meant to be universal? What if it is a tool used by leadership to manipulate and control ordinary Klingons? Historical revisionism, the Empire's favorite weapon. Perhaps the most damning evidence comes from one of the most important political events in Klingon history: the discommendation of the House of Mo. In Star Trek: The Next Generation, Worf discovers that his father is to be blamed for a treasonous attack on Khitomer. But it's a cover-up. The real traitor was a prominent political figure whose exposure would destabilize the Empire. Rather than risk civil war, the High Council fabricates a lie and forces Worf's family to accept the disgrace. This is more than political expedience. It reveals an empire that is willing to rewrite history to suit its needs, a hallmark of authoritarian regimes. Klingon honor, supposedly sacred, is tossed aside the moment it becomes inconvenient. A society that truly values honor wouldn't enforce guilt on an innocent family for the sake of political stability. A society built on a lie, however, absolutely would. This pattern repeats throughout Klingon history. When Gowron seizes power, he relies on propaganda and selective storytelling. When Marduk rises, he does so partly by leaning into rhetoric about restoring true honor, a statement that only makes sense if honor had been corrupted before. Each shift in the Empire is accompanied by a rewrite of what honor means. That's not a cultural tradition. It's a state narrative being constantly adjusted to maintain the illusion of continuity. The Kallus problem. No discussion of Klingon mythology is complete without the legendary Kallus the Unforgettable, the first emperor, the philosopher-warrior who forged their identity. Kallus is to Klingons what King Arthur is to the British or Hercules to the ancient Greeks, a foundational mythic figure. But the moment Star Trek reveals that the modern Klingon government created a clone of Kallus to inspire unity among the people, it becomes impossible to ignore the implications. The High Council doesn't summon Kallus' clone out of spiritual reverence. They do it because they need a symbol to maintain order. If Klingons truly had unwavering loyalty to their ideals, why would the Council need to resurrect a myth to keep society functioning? The cloning of Kallus is one of the most explicit admissions in Star Trek that Klingon culture thrives on manipulation. There is an official, institutional recognition that the idea of Kallus is more important than the actual historical figure. A symbol is easier to control than a real leader. The Kallus myth, then, isn't just a spiritual story. It's political infrastructure. Warrior culture as manufactured identity. Another compelling argument for the Klingon lie theory is the sheer practicality, or impracticality of Klingon culture. A real society cannot function if everyone behaves like a berserker ready to die for glory. Cities don't run on battle cries. Empires don't endure by sending every citizen into honorable combat. Yet the Klingon Empire persists. How? Because most Klingons aren't warriors. We rarely see farmers, engineers, teachers, bureaucrats, or scientists, but they must exist in vast numbers. Someone has to build the warships, manage the logistics, and operate the infrastructure. A society of nothing but warriors wouldn't last a generation. This discrepancy raises troubling questions. Why are ordinary Klingon jobs almost never acknowledged? Why does the Empire glorify battle yet rely on enormous non-warrior populations? Why is honor always defined in ways that justify the warrior elite maintaining power? The answer may be that the warrior culture is less a universal truth and more a state-sanctioned mythology designed to elevate the ruling class and keep everyone else in line. The case of the Lower Decks Klingons. Star Trek. Lower Decks offers some of the most interesting modern insights into Klingon society. In several episodes, we follow lower-ranking Klingons who aren't celebrated warriors, and their lives look decidedly unromantic. They struggle with mundane tasks, are reprimanded by their superiors, and deal with political pressure. What's striking is that these lower-deck Klingons rarely speak of honor the same way the elites do. Their world is full of fear, competition, and arbitrary punishments, not noble sacrifices. They aren't inspired by honor, they are controlled by it. This portrayal supports the idea that honor is a top-down ideology. It's something the leaders enforce, not something the population naturally lives by. Juras, Gowron, Marduk. Leaders who break the rules. If Klingon society is supposedly bound by honor, their leaders certainly don't show it. The House of Duras is corrupt to the core, yet maintains power for centuries. Gowron frequently abuses the system, turning honor into a political cudgel. Even Marduk, arguably the most noble Klingon leader, leans heavily on rhetoric and symbolism to maintain unity. If the most powerful Klingons are consistently dishonorable, yet retain legitimacy, the simplest conclusion is that honor was never meant for them. It was meant for the masses. This mirrors countless historical empires in which ruling classes promoted virtues they themselves ignored, because the ideals were designed for maintaining social cohesion, not reflecting reality. The lie at the heart of the empire. When you evaluate all the evidence, from historical fabrication to political hypocrisy to the myth of Kalas, a picture emerges. Honor is not the foundation of Klingon society. Honor is the lie Klingon society is built upon. A lie that keeps warriors loyal, keeps civilians obedient, keeps leaders powerful, and keeps the empire unified under a single ideological banner.